getting ready to go. Dwayne's getting all of his safety gear on, and we have a large cedar log which we had to fall next to the house, and anyway, we're going to make some cants out of it and haul them over to our little sawmill and saw them into boards. So Dwayne's getting his Alaska mill ready to go and will soon be ready to start sawing some of these cants with the little chainsaw mill. The cants will make these logs more or less manageable, or we can load them on a trailer and haul them over to the mill, and then it'll be no problem making them into boards. There are some little rails that Dwayne has bolted together, or you could use a ladder, and then we just set the mill on there and they slide right down these rails, and we'll be into making lumber real soon. We have the log laid out more or less right where it fell and cut into lengths. And now let's get the chainsaw to moving, and we're going to start cutting lumber. The peaceful morning air is interrupted by the roar of a chainsaw as the chain moves down the log, and the smell of cedar is in the air, and boy, does it smell good. The saw is sharp, and the tank on the chainsaw is full of gas, so we're ready to start making some lumber. That red cedar sawdust shoots out the spout as the saw moves down the log at a pretty good pace. It's moving right through this log. So we'll have a camp sawed out here in just a little while. Very well with the mill at first, and then we found that we didn't have some of the nuts on the mill tightened up enough, and some of them started loosening up and sort of got us out of time with the mill, but we'll get it fixed and go on. This little mill is just ideal for this, where we might just have 1 or 2 trees a year that have to come down, and we can save it into usable lumber. We're going to make Dwayne some fence boards out of it and a bunch of other things that this western red cedar will be really good for. We even saved a log or two from farther up on the tree for our grandson, and he wants to build a canoe out of it. And it used to be you couldn't build a canoe out of western red cedar because the oils in it would make the resin on the outside of the canoe come off, but they have a different kind of resin now, so it'll be okay, and maybe and then we get our first slab cut off. Wow, that is pretty wood. And so we'll regas the chainsaw up and start making cants. We won't need the ladder thing that Dwayne put together on this cut. We'll just let the mill ride right down on the previous surface that was sawed. The only problem we have now is the log is too wide for the mill, so we'll take the small saw and trim the log up to where this mill will fit right down it. Deafening roar of the chainsaw indicates that we're moving right down the log. We now have a big flat cant sawed, 6 inches thick and quite wide, and we tried to move it by hand but couldn't quite do it. So we'll just put a strap on it and I'll hook on it with the pickup and we'll just tow it out of our way so we can do the next one. These cants we've cut are a lot heavier than you might think, and we're going to have some trouble loading them on a trailer, but we'll figure out a way. We could hoist them up in a tree and back the trailer under it, I guess, if all else fails. So I'll just pull this cant clear out of the way, and then we can start on another one.
Stop!
The western red cedar is a very nice lumber when you get it sawed into lumber, and it smells so good, and it's used for siding and board and bat siding and fences and a lot of other things. And now it's time to get the old chainsaw to roaring again and cut off another one. Dwayne cranks and cranks on it. You hear that familiar? This is a very loud and powerful chainsaw, so all the safety equipment you can get helps minimize the danger of there being an accident. Those pants that Dwayne's wearing, the chain supposedly won't cut through them if it goes back and hits your leg. Hopefully it won't hurt anything. And then, of course, eye and ear protection are an absolute must. The loggers from the old school are all pretty much deaf now for not wearing the protective ear gear, which is really necessary to keep your hearing good. sawdust is once again being spread out from the sawdust chute on the chainsaw as the chainsaw roars and goes right down through the log. We're going to have another cant here real soon. And it doesn't take long to saw about the 10-foot length this is, although some of the lengths we cut are much longer. The weight of the log starting to pinch the chainsaw, so some wedges are fixed out. We just drive a few wedges in just to hold the rest of the cant up from pinching the saw where it won't run. The cedar slabs will make firewood, although they do burn quite rapidly and quite hot, and they will send sparks clear across the room. So you have to be pretty careful with it. But it's a great one for starting fires, and it probably wouldn't be too bad for campfires if you're in a clear area where those sparks don't start another fire. The early Americans on the coast built their houses of western red cedar, and they were half above and half below ground, and they could be disassembled to kill the lice by drowning them in the bay. One thing about burning cedar, it's a very nice one, for the smell, the aroma will fill the whole place. The western red cedar was a great one for the first Americans that lived here on the coast. They would cut this down using fire and stone and bone axes, and then they would build canoes out of it by burning them out hollow and then putting boards in to stretch them, and made really nice red cedar canoes out of the log. And another thing they used it for was their houses. They made wedges out of elk antlers and split the cedar into boards, and then they could even make interlocking boards that were watertight for the roof. And then on the roof they would have a board or two which was loose that they could prop up to let the smoke out. There was an ankle bone on the elk that was their favorite for making elk bone wedges, and they'd drive a whole series of them down a log, and then they would be able to split it by hammering them in.